Students, let's continue with the second chapter from history, that is the era of regional kingdom. In the last session we have studied about the three families that emerged as the kingdom, that we will continue the struggle of these three families today, and we will go to the next families. So, let us begin with the tripartite struggle. See, maybe this name you are listening first time. What is this tripartite struggle? That Kannauj, it is related to the Kannauj, and I am going to explain it in detail. Kannauj was the symbol of sovereignty. Sovereignty, it means supreme power, okay, great power, and a center of political development in North India. Okay, in North India. If you think towards see here, you can see now this that dot is paused here, so that is the place of Kannauj. So you can consider that it is in the center of the nation. So therefore, it every kingdom it wanted to have control over Kannauj, because they wanted to control, if they wanted to control the whole country, so Kannauj was important for these rulers. Kannauj, another importance of Kannauj, that due to its location became an important center of trade and commerce. Okay, so for the trade and commerce, so from the center of the nation, from the center of the country, it would be easy to have a trade with the other areas of the country. So therefore, it was Kannauj was important for them. The fertile region of Gangetic Valley fostered agriculture. So this is the Gangetic plain, generally Kannauj. Okay, so the river Ganga, it flows from that area. So therefore, the land, that is the Gangetic plain, and that land is very fertile, and for the agricultural yield it was a very important area. The new kingdoms that emerged were equally interested in acquiring control over Kannauj. Why? See, why these newly emerged territories, they wanted to have a control over the Kannauj. The struggle between these three major empires to establish their supremacy over the Kannauj is termed as the tripartite struggle by historians. So what is tripartite struggle? The three kingdoms, which kingdoms were there? Rashtrakutas, Palas and Gurjara Pratiharas. These three kingdoms, they were fighting to gain the power and gain the control of Kannauj. So that's why these three, they were fighting with each other. Therefore, this struggle is known as the tripartite struggle. These three empires were Rashtrakutas, the Palas and the Pratiharas. Control over Kannauj in turn was of great help to imply the control over the upper Gangetic Valley. It's rich resources. Okay, so obvious, this Gangetic Valley, it was very useful. It was, the land was fertile there. So these resources, the geographical resources which were there, that were also important for all these kingdoms. However, the constant struggle weakened these three dynasties and led to ultimate decline. Okay, so because of this struggle, they continuously they fought between each other, and this resulted in the weakening of these three dynasties, these three kingdoms, and ultimately it got declined. So it was the war that they fought with each other, that was the tripartite struggle. Next kingdom that was emerged, that was the Rajputs. Another important ruling clan means a family, a breed we can say, okay, a family, a dynasty, who appeared on the political landscape of medieval Indian history was Rajputs. Okay, another important uh, family that rule in India, in medieval India, that was Rajputs. They dominated the history of North India from the 8th to 12th century. It means these Rajputs, they remain in rule, continued rule from 8th century to 12th century. Historians have divergent views about their origin, in what way the origin of Rajputs was there. Many views are there. Historians have the different views on that particular origin of Rajputs. But one Rajput clan family which left its mark is the Chauhan or Chahamana rulers. Okay, Chauhan family from Rajputs that ruled this area, North India. That important family which ruled, that Chauhan family, or they were known as the Chahamana also. The Chauhans arose as vassals of Gurjara Pratihara. Okay, Gurjara Pratiharas vessels, it means juniors of their, or they are under control of Gurjara Pratiharas. They were smaller than the Gurjara Pratihara. Okay, Gurjara Pratiharas control was there on the Chauhan. Okay, so Prithviraj Chauhan was the famous ruler of Ajmer. He was also known as Rai Pithora. Okay, that out of these Rajputs, the famous and important ruler was Prithviraj Chauhan, and who ruled Ajmer, and he was also known as Rai Pithora. Okay, Rai Pithora, it is a title. Generally, in what way the kings they title themselves as Raja, Maharaja, Dhiraj, like that. The valiant ruler, valiant means very brave. Okay, the valiant ruler led resistance opposition to. Okay, the valiant ruler led resistance against Muhammad Ghori, but was defeated in the second battle of Tarin. Okay, this Prithviraj Chauhan, he had made the resistance against Muhammad Ghori. It means when Muhammad Ghori attacked on India, that we have studied in the Delhi Sultanate. Okay, in this chapter you have studied that Ghori attacked on India and acquired the North Indian territories. So that time Prithviraj Chauhan was a powerful resistance for Muhammad Ghori, but the second battle of Tarin, in that Prithviraj Chauhan was defeated by him. Then the next that family, that kingdom that rose in the medieval India, that was the Cholas. Okay, we will have the case study of this. The Cholas became prominent in 9th century. The Chola empire included the large portion of South India. Okay, so this kingdom, it was emerged in South India. Okay, Vijayalaya, the founder of the Chola empire, was a Pallava feudatory in the middle of 9th century CE. Okay, so Vijayalaya was the founder of Chola dynasty or Chola kingdom. Okay, and these were the Pallava feudatory. Okay, Pallava feudatory, it means landlord or the noble. Vijayalaya was the noble or landlord in Pallava kingdom. Okay, then he captured Tanjore from Mathura Raj, a contemporary ruling family, and made its capital. Okay, Vijayalaya, he captured Tanjore from whom? Muthura Yaras. Okay, Muthura Yaras that was the contemporary ruling family, and from them he acquired Tanjavur and made its capital. The Chola's capital was Tanjavur. There he built a temple to commemorate his accession. Commemorate, it means to recall. It should something should be in remembrance of the people. Therefore, something is made or something is celebrated or constructed. He built the temple for this Tanjavur's accession. The successors of Vijayalaya annexed neighboring territories and expanded the kingdom in size and power. Okay, the kings, those who came after Vijayalaya, they annexed neighboring territories and they enlarged the size of their empire. The Cholas, out of that, Raj Raja, that was the Raj Raja first, that was the important king in Chola dynasty, that we will study in detail. The Chola power reached its highest point of glory under Raj Raja first and his son Rajendra first. It means these were the two important kings from the Chola family, that Raj Raja first and Rajendra first. Raj Raja first began his aggressive policy of territorial conquest by destroying the Chera navy and attacked Kilon, present day Kollam. Okay, Kollam, it means that is the Kerala region. In Kerala it is a beach, Kollam. So that Raj Raja first, he destroyed Chera navy. Okay, Chera, it means the another kingdom in south that was ruling this area, Kilon, okay, Kollam, and he destroyed their navy. Then further the defeat of Pandyan king brought Madurai under his control. It means Raj Raja first, he again defeated Madurai king Pandya, and Madurai he added to the Chola empire. Then invasion of Sri Lanka helped him to conquer its northern part. Even Sri Lanka, on Sri Lanka also he attacked, and the northern part of Sri Lanka he won. His military achievements also include one of his naval expedition against Maldives, that is the island countries near to India. Okay, then he made the expedition against Maldives also. He then overran the eastern Chalukyas of Vengi. Okay, चालुक्य फैमिली जो थी, जनरली उनको चालुक्याज ऑफ वेंगी कहा जाता था. ओके, सो इट मीन्स राजा फर्स्ट had shown his power, his bravery. At the same way, his successor, his son Rajendra first, he was also very brave king, and he also extended the territories of his dynasty. He was another important ruler of the Chola dynasty. He continued his father's policy of expansion. Okay, he continued to extend the territories. During his rule, the whole of Sri Lanka was annexed and made part of Chola empire. Okay, Sri Lanka was annexed by Rajendra first. Raj Raja, he had acquired only northern Sri Lanka. Now Rajendra first acquired the whole Sri Lanka. Reasserted the Chola supremacy over the Chera and the Pandyan countries. Okay, Pandya and Chera, these were the another two kingdoms that were ruling in south, and they declared their supremacy over these also. Then next, one of the remarkable expedition of Rajendra first was Bengal. He acquired Bengal also. The Chola armies crossed river Ganga and defeated the local rulers. Then the commemorate of his successful campaign, he took the title of Gangai Kod Chola, meaning Chola king who conquered the river Ganga. Then he founded a new capital called Gangai Koda Cholapuram, meaning the city of the Chola king who conquered the river Ganga. Then The greatest of the achievements of Rajendra I was his naval expedition to Sri Vijaya. Sri Vijaya, nowadays Indonesia. Even Indonesia also, this Rajendra I he made expeditions. The expedition was undertaken to clear the hindrance caused by Sri Vijaya to Indian traders to increase trade with China. Okay, China के साथ trading when it was going, and there were hindrance, it means disturbances were created by Indonesia. Therefore, this expedition he made on Indonesia also, Sri Vijaya, that was the name that time. A number of places such as Kadaram, that is Kedah, Malay Peninsula and Sumatra, these places were also acquired by Rajendra I. The greatest of the achievements of Rajendra that Indonesia that we have studied. Then the successors of Rajendra I tried to preserve the Chola Empire, but they continuously fought against each other and weakened themselves. After Rajendra, that kings they fought with each other for being the successor, and then weakened. And Rajendra III was the last Chola ruler who was defeated by the Pandyan king Jatvarman and Jatvarman Sundar Pandya II, and thus the Chola Empire merged in the Pandya kingdom. So the administration of these kingdoms in south, that were provincial kingdoms, the Chola Empire was divided into a number of provinces known as mandalams for the sake of the administrative convenience. Okay, Chola Empire was divided into provinces were known as mandalam. These mandalam were divided into valnadus, that districts. Okay, and these valnadus were divided into the groups of villages, nadus. Okay, we can say tehsils or talukas. Okay, the large township formed a separate administrative unit called Taniyapur. Okay, bigger cities were known as Taniyapur. Mandalams were put under the charge of a governor who usually belonged to the royal families. Okay, mandalams, it means provinces, their charges were given to the royal families only. Then the rural administration of Cholas. There are number of inscriptions throwing light on the rural government of the Chola Empire. So what were that their rural administration had three types of assemblies. The first one Ur, the second is the Sabha, and the third one is the Mahasabha and the Nagaram. The Ur was general assembly of common villages which included landholders of all classes of the people. Okay, Ur, it was a general assembly in villages, common villages. Okay, then the Sabha was restricted to the villages with Brahmin settlements where land belonged to the Brahmins. Okay, it means Sabha, that was the self-government, local administration, that was Sabha, where there the Brahmin settlement is found more. They often received land grants known as Brahmadeya, which were rent free. Okay, Brahmadeya, where the land, it is the lands are given to Brahmins, that were known as Brahmadeya. Then next, that is rural administration. The Nagaram was an assembly that found in important trade centers. Okay, where there is the trade centers, the assembly was found there. Nagaram. This remarkable self-government system which existed during the Chola period worked in other villages as well to some extent. Okay, in other villages also the same system in other kingdoms were also followed by the people. The degree of autonomy enjoyed at the village level was very noteworthy. Autonomy, it means all the powers of ruling village were concentrated in the hands of that administration. So that was the autonomy there it was found. The agriculture and irrigation, agriculture prosperity depends on the availability of water, obvious. The Chola paid attention into the irrigation system. Rivers such as the Kaveri were utilized for the irrigation purposes. Embankments means the hindrances to make the dams like that, okay, were built to prevent flooding, and many canals and dams, tanks, wells were constructed by them. Revenue system, land revenue was important resource for the income for state. Revenue was collected in tax or kind, it means the people can offer their produces also as a tax, and in cash also it was given. So the two things, they were exempted from taxes, they did not pay taxes, that the residential part of villages that were called as nattam, they did not pay the tax, and other lands belonging to the temple, tanks, channels, these passing through villages. So these lands were also free up from taxes. Then besides the land revenue, other sources of public income were there. Tolls, variety of professional taxes were there, house tax was there, taxes on mines and forest, plunder of the neighboring territories, etc., trade and commerce. These were the main sources of income. The inscriptions of Cholas mention more than 400 terms for different types of taxes. Then the architectural development of this period is the period of Chola Empire marks the glorious period for the history of South Indian temple architecture. We all know that there are very important and beautiful temples are found in South India. The style of architecture was at its peak during this time, that were known as Cholas, that were known as Dravida. Okay, the examples are there, the temple of Kailasnath at Kanchipuram, the Brihadeshwara temple at Tanjavur, built by Raja Raja first, the temple at Gangaikoda Cholapuram, okay, Gangaikoda Cholapuram, okay. So these are the examples. Sculptures of this time, these are the art of sculpture achieved high standard in South India during the Chola period. The sculpture at the Brihadeshwara temple, Tanjavur, can be regarded as the most matured example of Chola workmanship. So here the Chola craftsperson called at making of bronze images. So here we can find images of the deities, it means gods, goddesses, even of the devotees. The bronze dancing figure of Lord Shiva called Nataraja, here it is, I am depicting you that picture, exhibits the great artistic skills in the bronze casting and making idols. Then the inscriptions that the copper plate inscriptions are a broad sheet of copper, here as it is shown in the picture, on which the information engraved, imprinted, okay, or embossed, they are tied together with the thick ring and crowned by the seal of the dynasty, as it is shown here in the screen. The Chola inscriptions and stand as source of interesting information, as they give a vivid picture, descriptive, more description about that, vivid picture about donation of land, titles, their conquest, the important events, then genealogies, etc. The Chola inscriptions are also of a great help to study the social, economic and political life of Chola Empire, and for instance these inscriptions of Uttarame Purur in Chingleput district, Tamil Nadu, and provide details the local self-government and village and the assemblies of that period. So in this way here students, we have completed the second chapter, the era of the regional kingdom. So thank you for attending the session.